guy has been doing is,
Go ahead. Go ahead,
I'm
Bob.
sorry.
Sorry.
One of the things my IT guy has been doing is instead of just recording it, he's got an AI plugin that
Oh,
transcribes the meeting and summarizes it into a couple sentences, into a couple paragraphs. And some of our sales, it's been really awesome that they can take a lot of the crap as we just babble on and on and on and eliminate all of that, come out with the points. And he's using AI to do it.
yeah. You know what? I saw a demo on a really interesting. There's a lot of technology actually that does that, but that's interesting. I'd like to find out more about that offline. Okay, so here's what we're talking about: setting your sales team up for success, onboarding, and beyond. Okay, so I want to do a quick poll because this will help us get focused on what's more important for you guys. So I'm just going to launch a quick poll. Let me just make sure I get the right one here. All right, just sort of tell me, okay, what do you currently consider to be your biggest sales challenge right now? So I know there may be some more than one that you're concerned with, but if you were to pick the biggest one, which would it be? And that way you'll give me some focus to on where to cover most.
I can't respond to your poll because of
Oh,
driving, but just a quick glance at it, I'm going to say none of the above. Mine's record keeping and getting people to say what they're doing,
record keeping. Okay, record keeping.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's a
like
good one.
CRM.
That's a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah,
I
that
got
is a good one. Okay, make sure. So we've got all
I guess
right.
that would be motivating the team to do their job, to note take or keep track
All
of.
right. So we've got, if I end the poll, does it show the results? Let me just make sure. So one qualifying, one closing, two keeping the
Continuous
team
improvement
motivated,
on my end.
and two continuous improvement. So we've got 1, 1, 2, 2. We've got across the board really. Um, so uh share results. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So there's two on motivating, two on continuous improvement, one qualifying, one closing, one record keeping. Okay, good. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, that's a great,
So I think
great goal.
with lead, no one said lead generation, and that's interesting because that's been a big issue for a lot of companies that I first talked to, and a lot of times it's really a matter of, are they really focused on the best opportunities? And we deal a lot with manufacturing companies, so they seem to be fragmented into a lot of different areas and need to really have their team members, and they could be dispersed geographically, really focusing on where the best opportunities are, and the trends can vary depending on what areas they're working in. And then a lot of companies are really in mature markets, and I think that's probably the case for all of you pretty much. So how do you differentiate your business from your competitors in a real clear and distinct way? And then what are they doing to prospect? Who's doing the prospecting, and how are they turning over new opportunities in an effective way? But in terms of qualifying and closing, that's the sales process. And a lot of I we were with a customer yesterday. This is really out of our wheelhouse, but we've got a client that does very, very, very high end uh, psychiatric treatments, and it's extremely expensive. Not, it's self pay, and they have a team that's getting the referrals, and another team, different team, that's doing the admissions, they call it. But their admissions process was like they do like a 5-minute interview, and then they tell them what the price is because they want to make sure they can afford it. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're missing a few steps there. I mean, they're dealing a very, very complex situation with that's very high end price wise, and they're treating it like it's a transaction. And it's really not. So what are you doing to execute if closing, the one person said closing, okay? If closing's an issue, you want to be looking at, in my opinion, how well are you qualifying? How well are you really qualifying the deal? Okay. And that I think is something to look at. And there's a lot that goes into that. We can talk about that in a little more detail. And then motivation. So two people listed motivation. And what I find, this is the time of year, maybe it's a little late, everybody's saying, all right, what are our plans for 2025? And it's not uncommon, when I ask that question, it's like, well, last year we did 5%. I think, we'd be happy if we did 5% again. Okay, well, what's the magic to 5%? What does that mean? And even if you had a realistic reason for that number, whatever that 5% revenue represents, it's what does that really mean to the business, and why that so it's really what I'd like to hear when somebody tells me what their goals are for this year, or maybe even out into the future, is here's where we want to go, because what? And I just started a program with a client that does packaging, and they they have a lot of customers, and they just basically get so many inbound inquiries from all their existing customers that they're just so busy taking care of them that they don't really have a lot of time to prospect for new, although they all are. And so they go out and they do things just kind of haphazard. And we right now we're just getting started, but they have picked out which of their existing customers they have the best opportunity to grow with. They have they have a plan of what they're going to do, what activities to be able to potentially bring in, some of them they could double the amount of business they're getting from. And what is their plan of action, though? And when we looked at it, they're like, hey, this is a lot of time. Yeah, it is a lot of time. But they're spending a lot of time with existing customers. But now they know how much time they're going to spend with those ones for a purpose, a means to an end. And then we picked specific, because of all that analysis we did on them, we picked new markets and particular targets within that are in that ideal client prospect demographic for them to go after, so that now their time with existing customers and their time prospecting is going to be a lot more effective. And they're all excited about it because they have a real plan that's well defined, and they see outcomes from it, and there's an overall outcome for the company. Okay. And so now as we go forward, we'll talk about what their progress is towards that overall outcome. And so that's really what you want to be thinking about. Some of you, are the leaders here, and it's, what does that mean? So, be thinking about it. We could talk about a little bit more about that, but it's everybody to motivate people. The real question is, what are they part of? They're part of what you have put in place. They're part of achieving your vision. And, don't underestimate the part of motivation that is derived from making a contribution. But they got to be contributing to something. And that's your job as the leaders to define that and help them see that. Then it's a matter of, helping them to see how they're improving or how they're contributing to that. Okay. It's not always about compensation, although compensation is important. I mean, if you got salespeople, they should be motivated by money. It's part of the reasons why salespeople, are drawn to sales positions. And so, that's something we can talk about a little bit more also. Okay. And then continuous improvement. So, training, coaching, it's ongoing. What do you do? I really do think, I know, Dom, you meet weekly with all of your team, and they what are you doing during that time? And it takes a little planning. I just actually asked one of your customers, Dom, who I know on both ends you do business with, and I've talked to some of your team about it. MCOR is who it is. I might be doing some business with them. So the VP gave me a list of all the trainings he's going to do throughout the year, and he wants to plug me into some of them, and that's good. That's what he's doing. He's thinking about, he's in the same boat as you, because, there's less cranes. There's going to be fewer and fewer cranes, and so everybody's got to, be a little more focused on where those opportunities are, and because everybody's going to be going after the same market share. And but ongoing trainings and ongoing coachings, to just so that people can see how they're improving. And that's part of what Bob was talking about. Are you tracking the right things so that you have the data to show them how they're improving? And I think, that's one area where because I know, Dom, you have in the vision, and then you got Salesforce, and then I got people using spreadsheets. So it'd be nice if we could sort of, pull that all into one system somehow. You know what I mean? And I know it's not that easy.
Yeah, we're pushing Nav into Salesforce, which is helpful
Yeah.
because Nav's just the vision is a beast, but at least the guys now can see it in the field. Better than Navision was not good. They'd have to do their homework on a laptop and then go out. But now they can see stuff on the phone with Salesforce.
Right.
So
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
good.
a manual push. It's a manual sync every day to push the data.
Right, but the data I get on their monthly production on the game, it'd be nice to be able to get that data out of Salesforce so they don't have to use a separate spreadsheet. You know what I mean? It's not that easy though. But maybe it's something we could talk about.
I don't mind. I don't mind that because
Yeah.
it makes them have to do it.
Yeah.
If they just popped out a spreadsheet and handed it to you, are they sure that what's on there is qualified and pipeline stuff, or it just is their name assigned to it so they got it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes I like them having to work to get some of that because
Right.
it too many times they look at the pipeline. It's like, because we have a variety of ways revenue comes in, and like a tech quote that they didn't even know about, but they're assigned to it because it's their customer, and they're like, oh yeah, I just closed 20 grand last month, and they weren't involved in any of it. So
I like it too, because then I can compare it against your data and see if I got everything, but it gives me what I need. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and those
So
Friday night reports help too. So.
yeah. All right. So why are we doing this? Well, if any of you have had somebody who didn't work out, you get it, right? Because it's expensive. You know, it- hiring hiring people and training them and working with them, it's expensive. But when they don't work out, all of that knowledge they've gained out in the marketplace, your salespeople are your boots on the ground, your first line, and they should be bringing back information about what's happening in the marketplace, and that's gone with them. Plus all the time that you spent skilling them up, and even though you might retain the customers that they were working with, they had the relationship, and that goes with them also. And hopefully they were using the CRM because the data then should stay with the company about who they contacted, what have they done, how many meetings have they had, how many quotes did they do, and all that information hopefully it stayed with the company. But the real cost is the productivity you didn't get, because if you had somebody and you expected them to producing a certain number of you know a certain amount of revenue over a period of time, and you didn't get it, that's the expense. So, and it's worse for smaller businesses, because usually in smaller businesses people are really doing more, they have more responsibilities and there's a bigger gap. So I sometimes I find that the first thing is, how well has the position been defined? And I think that it's not uncommon. Somebody says, "Yeah, I'm going to hire a salesperson." All right, well, what do you want them to do? Well, I want them to bring in business. Okay, well, that's not enough to find. What is it that? And a lot of times they're defining outcomes. I want somebody to be prospecting. I want somebody to be developing leads. I want somebody to be closing, business. Oh, those are all outcomes, not behaviors. So, if somebody doesn't have that well defined, I say, all right, you put together a list of all the tasks you want these people to do, and then send it to me. Okay. Because it's the behaviors that need to be done. And then when you think about behaviors, who is it they need to be interacting with and how? Okay. Because then that defines what kind of acumen they need or what kind of competencies they need. And because a lot of times what they do is they say, okay, yeah, we're pretty good at defining behaviors, and then what kind of experience do they need to have? But it's the acumen and the competencies that kill you. Okay. And then what are motivators, right? So what are they motivated by? And does the job actually, responsibilities are things they're going to be doing day to day, does that actually give them, feed into what they are motivated by? Because if they're not, then maybe, you don't have the right person. They have to be fulfilled. Their motivators need to be fulfilled by the job that they're doing. And and their intelligence, emotional intelligence. So how well are you really benchmarking that job? And so when you look at my new hire, what is the role that you're really trying to fill? Because if you're saying, well, I need a salesperson, is it really, are you really looking for somebody who is more of an account executive? So in other words, they need to go generate their own leads. They need to conduct their own sales meetings and close their own business. Okay. That's a higher level, more sophisticated, higher paid position. But where are the real gaps? Because, if you need somebody to produce leads, that's where the gaps are. When that doesn't seem to be the case for any of you, then maybe what you need is maybe an outbound sales development rep that can maybe work into an account executive position. Or if you have a lot of existing customers and they're not really being covered well enough. Maybe what you need is account managers, or maybe what you have is account managers, and you need somebody else to really generate the new business. And, or maybe you have a lot of leads coming in and you need somebody to be able to handle those leads and qualify them for the account executive. So, take a look at how your team members are spending their time and what percentage of the time is on which area. And then you may then give you some insights to what roles you need to add. If say your team's spending 25% or more of their time in one area, maybe you need somebody in there to do that, to free them up to do more higher ROI activities. And so, think about, because if you're hiring an account executive versus a account manager versus an inbound marketing response rep, those are different jobs with different skill levels, different pay grades, and different person. Any questions? Okay. So, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this because nobody really picked lead gen, but marketing, prospecting, and sales just aren't the same thing. And they're different, but they're interrelated. But marketing is really generating awareness, and it's what you do with the awareness that's important. And are you specific? Are you focused on the right markets? Are you differentiating yourself in the right way? And how are you producing leads? And then prospecting is proactively working channels to develop those leads and to get a meeting with a decision maker who's there to determine, do I want to buy from you? Sales doesn't start until that's happened. Okay. And so for those of you who said, it's qualifying and converting, perhaps, that's an area where they can improve, is that maybe, when you're marketing, you're prospecting, you're sort of selling prematurely. You need to, meet with people, have a better conversations to discern, all right, who is worth our time? And are we meeting with the right people? And so our sales process is more effective. You got a question there?
Yeah, I got a question, Ken. I like to separate, let me back up. When I first started as a founder in startups, I always thought sales and marketing was essentially the same because I was pretty much doing everything myself. But as I grew the company and I had a marketing department and I had salespeople, we had two separate funnels, but they had to be very integrated at the same time. So the question for you and for anybody else in the room is, what do you consider direct messages on social, specifically, let's say LinkedIn? Could you say that's prospecting because it's in the DMs and it's not in the public? I would say marketing is more, public conversations, and then sales could be more private conversations, whether it be emails, DMs, phone calls, in-person meetings, or Zoom meetings. So thoughts about differentiating, and would you consider new interactions on LinkedIn consider marketing or sales?
Or prospecting.
Or prospecting.
Yeah. Anybody have a comment on that? How people using LinkedIn?
Are we using even LinkedIn here?
It depends on your business, really does.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't prospecting maybe. You know, like if I bump into somebody, that's the first thing I'll do is look them up on LinkedIn
Yeah,
and maybe connect with a message. But
absolutely. Yeah.
I'd say more to me, I define that as prospecting versus selling.
Yeah.
But our
Yeah.
marketing person uses it a lot on marketing.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
prospecting was within selling. How is prospecting different than selling?
Yeah, I mean, do I take the next step? So to your point, it could be the infancy of selling. But you could build a relationship and then get a referral, whatnot. So good point. It's where my end goal is to sell, I guess, but I may know this guy doesn't have any juice and he's not going to buy anything from me, but I want to see who he knows and who's at that facility, because some of these guys, facility managers, you don't want to kind of have them drag you in, because then the ones on the ground, I'd be like, oh, they told me to meet with you, and they never starts off well. So you kind of find out who they know and what they know, and maybe get an introduction versus so to me that's kind of, I don't know, prospecting, networking.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Patrick and Peter are more in business to consumer markets. So I would say LinkedIn's probably not a good place for them
It
to
is
be.
though. You can use it. So, like the people that on our business to business, like for our roll-off business, it's more business to business, and we're
Yeah.
not the only people they use. So one of the things that I try to do, where you're currently like maybe like a third or fourth tier vendor for that client, you're still prospecting. I want more of that business. So one of the things we do is, one of our customers from Texas, they're up here, they're remodeling like a Holiday Inn in the metro. So I'll go over there, I'll take a picture of our dumpster out in front of the Holiday Inn, and then I'll tag the client, whether it's be on LinkedIn or whether it's on Facebook, and say, hey, big shout out. Thank you so much for the business. We're looking forward to doing more business with you. And so you're trying to engage them indirectly, and you're getting other people to look at your profile, and they're seeing that you're hustling, or they're seeing that you're acknowledging these people that are doing business with you, and and you start getting more and more and more business. So you're always prospecting. We're always prospecting, I think, even the people that
Good.
you're selling.
Love it. That makes me feel good. Yeah. So
Well,
I
yeah.
know. Go ahead.
No, it's just, yeah, it's constant. It never ends.
All right, I'm gonna skip this one because lead gen's not really an issue, and then I want to get into the other topics. Prospecting. Really, there's three parts to prospecting. It's who are your targets, and are you really focused? Do you have a list? Do you have an acronym? We're always struggling with this, getting a real good list of targets there's in our specific markets, and getting good contact information. And so that's where you start. And then how are you going to get those conversations? What are the channels? And so it's important to have, in our opinion, we have 4 active channels that your sales team is working concurrently. And then you find that there's 1 or 2 that are predominantly bringing in most of your business, but the other 2 or 3 feed that, and they work together. Okay. So like Fadi was talking about LinkedIn, for example, these webinars are, a lead gen source for me. And, I use LinkedIn to promote it. And there were 2 people that registered that didn't show up. One I've already met with one key person in that company, so I'm already in play with them. But the other one, I never, I don't even know who they are, but I'll follow up with them. So I promote, the webinars with LinkedIn. And then the third part is your formula. What is your formula? So what are the activities that need to be done? Well, how many deals do you need to close? How many proposals do you need to generate? How many meetings do you need to have? How many quote leads do you need to generate? And then what's the activities that are required to really, be able to result in those outcomes. All right, I will at risk. Let's skip this one too. All right, so we're going to talk about qualifying because that was a topic that a couple of people had mentioned, and if you're well, first of all, you want to be dealing with people who are chiefly involved with the decision, and and that's really the marketing and the prospecting, and having enough and a consistent flow of opportunities to be to be consistently producing outcomes, the outcomes you expect. But when you're qualifying the deal, there's really 4 steps to that. And first, you need to really find out what's the compelling reason. What's the compelling reason for the person you're talking to or the company you're dealing with to change what they're doing, or change providers, or actually, buy the product or service that they're coming to you to get information on. And how compelling is that? In other words, what's the consequence to them to not do it or not change? And are they committed to making that change? And then how will they make that decision? Who else is involved in that? And what is the process they'll go through to make their decision? And what's the criteria they're going to base it on? And when are they going to decide? And what do they consider a good investment to be? And are they willing to make that investment? And how they'll make that investment? Okay. And I think when qualifying is an issue, this is not really being done in an effective way or in a comprehensive enough way for people to be closing the business. And I think if this is done properly, then when you get to doing your presentation, first of all, you're a lot more spot on with what you're presenting. But you also understand whether or not this, your prospective customer is ready to make a decision or not, and why, or what's going to hold that, what's going to prevent them from making a decision when you expect them to. Okay. And, so I think, so for some of you guys, in Patrick's group, I really want to spend a lot of time working with you guys on this, because not everybody is going to be ready, but you need to help them with that, and I think that'll help you with getting better results, but also knowing whether you're wasting your time. And so this is something that it's a process. It's not an event. And so, it's a matter of execution. And once you do that effectively, you'll find that you are going to identify potential roadblocks and stalls and objections before they happen. And you'll be able to manage them, maybe prevent them from happening, or at least know that, okay, I'm heading towards a stall here. And so this is really the meat of your sales process. And so when you're presenting, you're just sort of helping them make that decision. And it's sometimes just as simple as just saying, hey, well, all right, what do you want to do now? because you know that they have a compelling reason to do the job. They're committed to doing it, and you discussed how they'll decide, so you know what to present them, if anything, and that they're okay with the investment. So it's right. What do you want to do now? Let's go. Okay, and then you head off buyer's remorse, and then set up an implementation plan so everybody's expectations are met. And you create a loyal customer that wants to tell all their friends and family and neighbors how great you are. Right? Any questions about this?
I do.
Yeah.
From an owner's perspective, I'm not an operator. And when I used to, well, I should say when I used to operate a business full time as the business owner or manager, I did quite a bit of training with my salespeople. I try to hire people that are self-sufficient, that don't need training, but I always offer training. And I'm wondering today if a manager or a business owner is good for them to train their sales team, or is it always better to bring a third party? Because I've done both, and I felt personally, if I hire somebody to do the job, they should just do the job. That's why I hired you, is to do the job. And back in the day, nobody really spent money on training those salespeople. It's up to them to get their own training done.
Yeah.
Today, later on in life, they realize how important training is, and I've hired trainers to train my salespeople, and that's when I saw the best results. So I'm not sure if it's in all industries, but I definitely believe in training. My whole background, it's been about training. But I don't currently have I have two salespeople right now on a project, and I'm realizing that I don't do enough training for them, although I make it available, but they don't take advantage of it. So I've said a lot there. It's a loaded question.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
that
sure
is
what I'm saying
loaded.
and what I'm asking is telling.
Yeah. I think it depends, and as you were saying, talking, because I know, Dom, you use your vendors as a resource for technical training. And, in your case, I mean, for a newbie, there's a learning curve. If they don't know the technology, they're going to be at a big disadvantage.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's two different scenarios. There's technical
Yeah.
training,
Yeah.
and then there's sales training.
Right.
So are we trainers? I have my way of doing things, but I always equate it to like having kids. You can tell your kids shit all day long, and they don't do it, and someone off the street come in and tell them the exact same thing, and they do it. But
Yeah.
I like using Ken because then I have side comments with Ken and see if or conversations and see if I'm seeing what he's telling me. Like, Rich doesn't do this or does that, and then I'll follow up and so I always loved a third person in that mix
Yeah,
of
I
helping
agree.
me get to the bottom. And we did it in the beginning. We didn't have any money, and we did our own thing, and we'd go out. I went out with them, and I try to windshield time coach them to and fro, but sometimes it just didn't sink in, because in this industry too, I got a lot of technical people that aren't used to selling, but they're trusted because they can talk the talk when they get on site. And some of the sales stuff eludes them. Like, oh, the guy said he was going to buy it. I'm like, okay, is he the decision maker? Is it budgeted? When is it? Do the Ken thing on them, the interview sheet, and they're like, oh, I didn't ask.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's where Ken comes in and kind of drills that stuff into them.
Right.
That-
Right. Yeah. So I can what I do is I help them really standardize on a process. So like Dom said, they know the language and they're talking about those things like interview sheet. What is that? But what he also mentioned was that he used to do is go on calls with them, and I don't do that. So, but I know Dom has some of the senior guys doing that with some of the younger guys, and that is invaluable, because not only do you have an expert guidance, but you have another fly on the wall that's sort of, observing things and can give them feedback on what they're doing. And so that's another, aspect of training that's invaluable and I think kind of essential. And then there's the coaching part, and so, like Dom said, we actually don't talk often enough, but it's he's got an ongoing coaching that happens, but then we compare notes so that he can get more feedback on what to coach people on. And so I think all of those are really part of it. And so who's doing it, who's doing what coaching, it really depends on who's the best person to do it. Because sometimes, almost all the time, really, there are people who are performing better than others. And of course, if you've been around longer and you have more experience and you have more relationships, you're going to be producing more. There's no question about it. But when you pull apart the layers, you will identify, well, this person does this activity a lot more efficiently. Let's take a deeper look at that. Why is this person so much more effective in this area? Well, that's trading opportunity. Let's train everybody else up so that they're more efficient there too. And who's the best person to do that? Maybe it's the person that's doing it very well, or maybe they just don't know why they're doing it very well. And so those are the kinds of things that go into answering that question. Right, Fatty, make sense?
Yeah, it
All
does.
right.
I think I'm going to bring you on to train the two guys
Yeah.
that's on my team. So thank you for that.
Sure. Okay. Now, Bob was talking about this. I don't know if we lost Bob because he was driving, but
In a blizzard.
what are you measure? Okay. And again, I think my opinion is setting the expectations based on what you expect people to do in terms of results and what are the activities that need to be done, are and then how are you giving them feedback? That's 80% really of performance. If you get that right, it's 80% in my opinion. But you need to have the data to let them know how well they're performing. And everybody knows whether they're hitting their sales goals. I mean, you got to know, you track sales because you got to invoice people. But are they consistently hitting their goals every month or every week? And then how many deals is that? So what's their average deal size? Because if they're going after stuff that's too small, then maybe it's who they're going, what kind of projects they're going after, that they need help with. Okay. But if they're not closing enough deals, then you're looking at, well, how many proposals are they doing? How many quotes? Right? Because if they're doing a lot of proposals and not closing them, then that's where they need help. You can give them some help there, right? But if they're not doing quotes or proposals, then it's like, all right, how many opportunities are they opening up? Because if they're opening up a lot of opportunities and it's not turning into quotes, well, what are they doing in those meetings? Are they talking to the right people, or why is that not happening? But if they're not getting opportunities, then it's like, okay, what are they doing to produce leads? And how are they conducting that? Are they doing the right activities? Can we help them to, figure out what activities are they willing to do and what frequencies, and how can they keep themselves accountable for doing that? Okay. And as you track, and you'll notice that all of this performance, it's all in ratios: dollars per sale, proposals per close, appointments per close, contacts per meeting, dials per contact. And, all of sales performance is measured in ratios. And ratios you can see increase or decrease over time. And that's why, when you can see, am I improving? Am I improving in which area do I need to improve, or can I improve to have the biggest result? Okay. Bob, is that helpful? Are you there? Yep. I think we lost him. Hopefully that's helpful. So I'm gonna have to run through it, and so I think motivation, getting back to motivation, part of the problem is people are just setting goals on what their past experience has been, or maybe they set goals are just not really reachable, or they're not a challenge enough, or they're too vague, or not prioritized well enough. And so as much as you can, let's talk about what is your vision, and think about, if you're the leaders here, some of you are, some of you aren't, but if we're meeting 3 years from today, what really has happened that you're saying, boy, that's better than I expected. I have a client that sells batteries for movie cameras. Okay, boy, talk about having a tough year because they had a big strike that really disrupted the market. But before the strike, the owner came to me and said, we were working on a 30% improvement in revenue, and we're at 45. How am I going to keep these people motivated? And I said, Ross, you told me that at that level, in 3 years, you will own 50% of the United States market. Did you tell your team members that? Because they were, when we started working together, they were really very not well known. And there was a 10,000-pound gorilla that every time they went to talk to somebody, hey, do you need a battery for your camera? And they're like, oh, I use these guys. Do you need a battery? We use these guys. And, they were on track to take 50% of the US market. And that's substantial. And, their competitor was helping them out because they were falling down on those certain things. But, that's something that people can get behind. We are on track to own 50% of the US market, taking market share from our competitor. And so base it on real increase in market penetration, or shifts in from one market to another, or a measurable impact to customers, or but here's the most important thing is you got to have outcome goals, because like revenue's an outcome. But what are the activity goals that are going to result in those outcomes? And help your team members to really figure out, okay, what are the activities I am willing to do, or do I think I need to do, and how often to really achieve those goals? Okay, because activity goals are things that every single person, including you and everyone on your team, they have 100% in control of whether or not it happens or not. Outcomes you can't always control. Activities you are in complete control of. Okay, and so make sure that you're setting some realistic goals, some meaningful goals, and that you help them plan how, what is it they need to do to make them happen, track things, and then make that part of your performance evaluation. Review it weekly and adjust it monthly. And then, onboarding. I'm sorry, we didn't really, Jen, get to this, but I know you're interested in this, but setting things up, what is it that they need to do 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? How is that going to be measured? And then you'll also want to know what happens if it doesn't work out. Okay. And then really set that in place, because people really want to know what's expected of them. And when I ask these questions and people haven't thought it out, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to micromanage." I'm not talking about micromanaging. I'm just talking about, okay, here's what we expect. This is what we expect to happen. And what are the goals? What is your role? What resources do you need? What are the key accountabilities? How do we expect you to be spending your time in general? And lay that all out, before the first week, 90 days, and have it laid out, at least what you think, so that what you're comparing it against, and then provide training and coaching, so that you're helping them through those things. Sorry about rushing through the end, but any questions about any of this stuff? No questions? Let me stop the recording here.
If you have any tools that you use on a regular basis,